Hey friend, are you asking yourself, is this what I really want to be doing with my life? I don't think so. I think there's something else that I'm meant to be doing. Welcome to the Painting Your Path podcast, where we have real conversations about what it takes to step out, be bold, and do you. I'm your host, Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey. And before we get into today's episode, I wanted to share two things. It's vision board season, and on November 15th, I'll be doing an in-person workshop in St. Gabriel, and you can find out more about that workshop in the show notes. It's happening November 15th. And if you don't live in Los Angeles, I have a vision workshop for you. It's my virtual vision board workshop, and you can take that in the comfort of your own home at any time. So the link to learn more about that is in the show notes as well. Okay, on to our episode for today. I had the honor of interviewing Pam Uzzell. She's the host of the podcast Art Heals All Wounds. She's an Oakland-based documentary filmmaker, podcaster, and storyteller focusing on housing equity, Black community, history, and creative healing. Her podcast explores how art transforms individuals and communities through healing and social change. As a documentary filmmaker and podcast host, Pam leads dialogues with audiences at universities, nonprofits, corporate events, and political forums, sharing stories of the transformative power of art. And without further ado, let's dive into my interview with Pam. Pam, welcome to the Painting Your Path podcast.
Hi, Clarissa. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Well, I am too. And before we get into talking about how art has supported your life, your journey, could you share with the audience a little bit more about who you are, what you do?
Sure. Well, for most of my life, I've worked in film, but in 2021, I pivoted and I started producing and hosting a podcast called Art Heals All Wounds. And that takes up a lot of my time, although I am on hiatus right now until early 2026. And then I also teach video production and editing at a local university. So that's pretty much who I am. I'm also a mom. I have two adult daughters. So that's pretty much it for me.
Love it. And before we get into, we're going to talk about health. And before we get into that, I'm sure there's audience members that are curious about your career history and how did you get into making documents and films?
So I grew up in a really small town in Arkansas and I had no idea that you could even work in film. But then when I went to school as an undergrad, there was a major that at that time was called semiotics and then changed to the name modern culture and media by the time I graduated. And you studied film. You studied, theories about films. It was right up my alley. Like a lot of the classes involved weekly screenings where you'd go for a couple of hours and see something, and then you'd talk about it and you'd write a paper about it. And I really loved that. But as part of that major, you had to do production classes of any kind, any creative production. At that point, I had taken a couple of creative writing classes, and I thought, well, I'm going to try taking a filmmaking class. So I did. and really got hooked on this process of coming up with an idea. You go out, you shoot it, you edit it, and then you have a little film that you made from that. So that's how I got started. And then I moved to the Bay Area, and there wasn't a lot of production in the Bay Area, but what there was an amazing group of people who edited really, really high quality sound for films. And it was kind of known in the industry at that time that if you really wanted this sort of like boutique touch to your film editing, your sound, you would come up to the Bay Area. And so I got a job doing that. I loved it. I loved the people that I worked with. As I started approaching having my first child, I started rethinking it as a long-term career path, though. It was really long, unpredictable hours, and I didn't really want to try and juggle parenting and that kind of work schedule. And so I went back and got my Master's of Fine Arts in cinema and decided, just for fun, I'm going to make a documentary. I've never worked in that genre before. So I did that for my thesis film, and I really felt like I found that aspect of storytelling that I really, really loved, which involved talking to people, hearing their stories, kind of, going over it in your mind, synthesizing it into one coherent narrative, and then, sharing that. So that was, I started graduate school in 97. I took many years off because I had my second daughter. And then I finally finished in, gosh, yikes, 2004, I think. And yeah, then I just, have been juggling between making my own films and then also teaching at a local art university. And then when the pandemic hit, I felt so kind of cut off from this idea of getting together with people and hearing their stories. So I thought, well, I'll just try a podcast because it's similar. It kind of has all the same things that I love. And I did. I started this podcast, Art Heals All Wounds. And then, 100 and something episodes later, this is where I am. So that's kind of the long and
Awesome.
the short of it there.
I love it. And as you were talking, I forgot this, but I remember taking a film class in my undergrad. I went to Boston College and loved the class. Didn't want to get into filmmaking, but it just it just had me appreciate the the art of film at a much deeper level. Because we would critique and talk about classic movies, and so it was really eye-opening, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we did that. And we also talked a lot about, the cultural implications of films and how you can interpret certain things. And I found it amazing. I didn't know you could think or talk about films in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great career.
Yeah.
And then shifting it to your podcast. So please tell us more about that as well.
Sure. So I took a podcast class actually to launch this. I was taking it online. And we had to come up with an idea. And I didn't go into it with any specific idea, but I thought, what is really inspiring me right now when we're all shut in, away from each other? What is inspiring me? And I thought about how a lot of the artists I knew had really pivoted to still find a way to keep either their organization or their work going and share it with an audience, which at that time I just felt really hungry to be able to see, film festivals. that had moved online, or I took even some theater classes that had moved online, and it just felt like I'm so impressed and I'm so grateful. So I started thinking about this idea that we are suffering a pandemic, and here are artists who are really offering, content that's really healing for me. And so I came up with the name, and I was just going to interview one organization. It was going to be a one-off for this class. And that organization is the Theater Lab in Washington, D.C. They're an amazing, amazing organization. And so I interviewed them. It was so fun. And I released it. And I kind of got that same little hit that I get, working on a film, except that it was so much more the timeline, the budget, everything was so condensed compared to making a film. I thought, well, I'm going to keep going for a little while just to see, what happens.
Yeah. And here you are, if I remember hearing right, 8 seasons later?
Yes, 8 seasons.
Yes. Love
Yes, I'm
that.
trying to remember. I should have looked before I came on here. Maybe I have 100 and maybe I have close to 200 episodes. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I don't want to exaggerate if that's not true, but it's definitely well over 150. And yeah, it's been very, very fun. I did feel like I needed to take a nice long break though, because as you know, it's very intense. When you get to a schedule, a podcast may be easier to put out than a film, but when you're on a schedule saying you're going to put something out, I was going every other week. For a while, I was going every week. And that, I don't know how I did it. And then I decided, okay, I'll go every other week. But even after that, I just felt like I need to pause here for a minute and get some balance back in my life.
Yes. I know how that goes because I produce one every week.
Wow.
And to be fair, I also like to do online events where I interview people. So I could pull from, I kind of double dip sometimes. And when I need a break or go to, um, a popular episode from a previous season to help myself, uh, give myself a little break.
Right.
And we'll have your podcast link in the show notes. I love listening to it. I love the sound of
Mm.
your voice.
Oh, thank you.
And also I just recently did a virtual summit called the Creative Care Summit.
Mm.
And I listened to Dr. Dasha Golden on your podcast, and that's what inspired me to reach out to her. And I had her on the summit. So thank you. I get to thank
Well,
you for that.
you're welcome. She is one of my heroes. Not, I mean, obviously her connection to arts and health is huge, but she's just such a radical thinker. And sometimes I really appreciate, she has this saying where she says, nothing is as it has to be.
Yes.
And I just thought that is so true. And it's one of those obvious things that we don't see. And only
Right.
a really brilliant person can see it and articulate it, which I think she is brilliant.
Yeah, she is brilliant
Yeah.
and is super kind and
Yes.
generous, and yeah, it was such a delight to talk to her.
Mm,
And now I get to talk to you. So Pam, I know we're going to talk about the intersection of art and health,
mm,
and I would love for you to share your journey um dealing with a genetic disease that came
mm,
up in midlife.
hmm. Yes. Well, before I talk about this genetic disease, I'm going to say that I had the epiphany that I have always turned to making things, whether it's a film. I mean, from childhood, I made things all the time. And film or engaging creatively, like playing the piano. I'm a very bad piano player, but I really enjoy it. Um, Singing, things like that. I have always done that my entire life, but I've never thought about the role that it played in my life. But when I had my first daughter, when she was 2, our pediatrician suggested to us that we should take her to some specialists. She said, I don't even know for sure if anything is going on with her, but I'm wondering. And I think you should just have her seen. So we started taking her to many specialists, GI specialists, neurologist. And it was the neurologist who finally said, there's nothing wrong with her, you know, reflexes or nervous system or anything, but maybe you should take her to the muscular dystrophy clinic and have them look at her. And we did. We took her to a local muscular dystrophy clinic, and it was so strange. As soon as we walked in the door, they looked at her, they looked at me, and they said, I think she has myotonic dystrophy. We're going to do some genetic testing, but we feel fairly certain that's it. And we feel fairly certain that she got it from you. And so they did. And I still was kind of on this deep journey of denial where I thought, there's nothing wrong with her. There's nothing wrong with her. I mean, I had no symptoms of any kind to my knowledge. And I thought there's nothing wrong with her. And so they did the genetic testing and they didn't get back to us. And I was so not wanting to hear bad news. I never followed up with them. And finally, at her next pediatric checkup, the doctor said, "Oh, did you ever hear from the muscular dystrophy clinic?" I said, "No, I'm sure that's nothing, that's why they didn't call." And she's like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry they didn't call. They did send the results to me and the test is positive." And so we started this long journey. First of all, I was trying to figure out what this disease was. This was 29 years ago that um, she and I were diagnosed. Very little was known about the disease at that time. There's a lot more information about it and studies that have happened, but very little was known. They didn't even have information that I could give to her teachers at school when she started school. And they really made it sound, this particular clinic, I won't name them, they were not a very good clinic, but they really made it sound like, no big deal. You know, she may need some help reading when she starts school. And um, it was so much more than that. And then at the same time, I really look back and think about how much I did not want to engage with the idea that there was anything going on with her. I didn't think about myself, quite frankly. That news that I also had it felt very, very secondary. But I also felt like, you know, my daughter's fine. Yeah, there are a couple of things that are, some weakness here, weakness there, but she's totally fine. And, you know, denial only lasts for so long until reality comes and has to wake you up from what you don't want to engage with. And so for her, this has been about muscular weakness, about some learning issues, which are pretty significant, about all kinds of things. This disease, it's a multi-system disease because it's actually at a cellular level. And so it is muscle related, but it's also, you can have gastrointestinal issues, you can have um, eye issues, you can have, um, it can contribute to getting certain types of cancer. And I mean, the list could go on and on and on, but it's a big deal. if you have it, and you don't really know where it's going to pop up for you or for your child. And I certainly didn't know at that time. And I didn't know who to reach out to either. I really look back at that time as being on such like a lonely island because it's
Yeah.
so rare. There was a myotonic dystrophy support group in our area, but again, I said, "Are there any children?" And they said no. And so I just wasn't interested because looking back, of course, I think it would have been great, and children did later join, but at the time, it just was like, I am looking for something for her. And so she is really the person who kind of showed me the role of art in working with challenging things. She joined an art, a program that hires teenagers to do art, and just seeing how she just latched on to this idea of drawing and illustrating and things and seeing how, I mean, she wrote a little book called or How the World Sees Disability that was just so profound in a way. And that's where really it struck me on a very conscious level of like, oh, this is actually a healing activity, creating something. And since then, I have started to have my own symptoms. One thing I've had skin cancer twice, which this myotonic dystrophy is definitely a contributor to that. Um, I also have a lot of GI issues. I also have the weird thing, the one thing that can happen is that muscles can freeze. For a lot of people, if they clench their fist, they can't unleash them, like release that
Right.
fist. That doesn't happen to me, but what happens to me quite often is that my tongue gets frozen. And it happens usually if I'm haven't talked for a while. Like if I wake up first thing in the morning and I tried to pick up a phone call and answer it, it does not go well.
Too soon.
Too soon, but also too like it's like my tongue is literally frozen. Like I can't move it. And I have picked up phone calls and sounded like I was intoxicated. And like, it's very embarrassing, but that's just one of the ways that it strikes me. And I'm not alone. I know other people who that is one of the same symptoms that they get is that their tongue freezes and they're unable to enunciate clearly. So, those are just a few of the things that we're dealing with. I do want to say that in this time, this 29 years since our diagnosis, an amazing, um, an amazing, what's the word, foundation has been formed around myotonic dystrophy. And I've
Oh,
met the
that's
most amazing
great.
people, families. My daughter has really good friends of other people who were diagnosed as children and are living with it as young adults. So a lot has happened in that 29 years, I'm happy to say, but it was so hard just because of the lack of information and because I was just so not willing to deal with it.
Yes, I hear you. And I wonder, like, is this something that people ought to get checked out? Because how would you know? Like, how do you know
That's a
if you have it?
that's a great question. Unless you're exhibiting some kind of symptom, you probably won't be tested. The tests, I believe, are pretty expensive to
I
test
can
for it.
imagine.
They're very specific. It's not something that you could just getting your blood work done could say, oh, can you also check me for this?
Right.
Um, and sadly, the way a lot of people who are either asymptomatic or have very, very light symptoms that they've always thought, oh, this is kind of weird, but it doesn't really bother me. The way they find out is that they have a child who's more severely affected.
Got it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's a very common story. It's a very
Yeah.
common story.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. And I don't have frozen tongue, but I sound like I have laryngitis, so I can empathize getting on the phone, um, and it being challenging. And I hate getting on the phone and having to say the word representative. Like, there's a whole joke in the spasmodic dysphonia community where that's the word we hate because people can't understand it half the time. Um, and I love the story that you shared about your daughter writing a book, getting into drawing, and art is so therapeutic. I've been a lifelong artist myself.
Mm,
It kind of like for the first half of my life, it kind of ebbed and flowed because I just went down the traditional path of go to school, get good grades, get a good job, da da da. And and in 2021, I also had a pivot. That's when I decided to leave corporate
mm,
after almost 30 years to be on this crazy entrepreneurial path. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. And after getting diagnosed with this, which still working through, um, art has been such a godsend. And I'm
mm,
curious for you, what kind of creative artworks have inspired you lately?
mm. Well, gosh, there's so many. I do love a good documentary film. I'm this Sunday, I'm going to go see a friend's film, which I haven't gone to see yet. I'm also really concerned about the environment, and it's about bats and,
Nice.
how they're threatened and also how they are essential for our well-being. Um, I also I watch so much television, like series, and there are so many things that inspire me in terms of story arcs and character development. And I find, you know, for me, I feel like, oh, this is not just wasting time. I'm working here, watching this
Yes.
and thinking about how this character developed over 4 seasons or something like that. And I love to read. I don't think I can come up with a favorite book because I love so many, but I just read a book um, about baboons, which I love animals. I do not, or I did not like baboons. I found them scary and kind of unattractive primates. And I really have a new appreciation of them after
Oh,
reading
nice.
the book. And it also it's kind of a comparison on, how baboons have evolved and are continuing to evolve and really what evolution means. So it was fascinating. So I love all those. I love music. I feel I'm approaching the time where I can't go out on a weeknight to a concert, but we did this past week, and
Good
I
for
was
you.
exhausted for days afterwards, but it was very, very fun. Yeah, I love just about anything, really. I
Yes.
mean, and I engaging with other people's work is to me just as important as doing your own work, if not
Yes.
more. I mean, we're constantly sharing in that way and passing back and forth knowledge and ideas through art.
Yes. Love it. And I recently joined an art community called Catalyst
Hmm.
with Michelle Armis. And I just love her work. She's a painter, and the colors that she uses are so vibrant. And she talks openly about, her mental health journey as well. So I agree, like observing and talking about other people's work is also therapeutic for myself too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes. Is there anything else, Pam, you'd like to share before we transition into what I call rapid fire questions?
No, the only thing I'd like to share, and maybe you can come on my podcast to do this, is I think we could talk for hours about the irony of both of us being talkers and having things that affect our ability to speak. I find that ironic.
Yes,
And I feel like when you reached out to me, I just thought, oh, I really, really could imagine talking about this so much more in depth, which now we don't have to do that, but it would be really interesting to get your take on that because
yes.
yeah, sometimes I feel it's an ongoing process. When you have something that's chronic, as opposed to, it's acute, you might get over it, but something that's chronic, it's an ongoing process to work with that on a daily basis.
It really is. And what I'll share now, and would love to come on your podcast to talk about this, it to me is a constant reminder for me to speak my truth,
Mm,
to continue to become. Um, I started a group program called The Art of Becoming,
mm,
kind of as a, I don't know what to, offshoot of this or iteration of like what's happening to me. And, some people say, well, you just need to, there's something you're not saying. And I'm like, no, that is not it. That might have been true at the beginning, but it's a neurological thing also. And talking in this way has sort of become my normal.
mhm,
And so it is having to shift, finding a way to shift out of it for an extended period of time. So that's kind of like where I am with all of it. But there is much more to talk about. So, yeah, that's
Well,
where I am now.
yeah. Well, hopefully you'll still want to talk about that when you come on my podcast
For
because
sure.
you just, even in that statement, you said things that I want to add on to, but we won't keep going on my
To be
topic.
continue, to be
Yes.
continued on Pam's podcast. Okay, Pam, we're going to transition to rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And I have my cheat sheet down here. Um, what is your word of the year if you have one?
Well, I could share so many words for this year, um, but I'm going to try and do a positive word, which is practice.
Practice. Love
Because
that.
I realized that I was not giving myself enough time to practice what I preached about engaging in creative works. So that's what
Love
I'm trying to
it.
do this year is to practice.
Beautiful. How about something you're looking forward to in this last part of 2025?
Well, my favorite event of every year is when both my daughters are home for Christmas. I love Christmas. I love them. And without them being here, it would not feel like Christmas. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's great. I just bought my plane ticket today to go see my mom in Texas. So
Oh, wow.
looking forward to that. How about your latest obsession? It could be a TV show, a trend, or anything.
My latest obsession is drumming.
Drumming.
Yes, I've this past year or so, I've been joining some very low-key drum circles. I'm currently taking a drumming class, and drumming with other people is the best thing I can think of to completely reset my mind, my body, everything.
Love that. That was a childhood dream of mine, like secret dream to be a drummer in a band.
You
So
still
I
can.
think I'm gonna get to, not have to, I get to explore that. So thank you, Pam. How about some memorable advice that has helped you in your life?
I think the best advice I ever got, and it was a long time ago, and it was something I really needed to hear, was to paraphrase, you don't always have to take the bait.
Nice.
Because I did, always. And I knew I was right. And sometimes I really was right. But I had a very dear colleague say, everybody knows you're right. And you don't have to have this interaction with your boss because everybody already knows that he's wrong. So don't just save yourself that trouble. And I was like, what an amazing idea.
Love it. Loved it. Thanks for sharing. And what is something most people don't know about you?
I think something most people don't know about me is that I'm very shy.
Okay, I wouldn't guess that. I,
Well,
yeah,
you and I are talking one on one, and I'm good in that situation. If you add second, third, fourth, 10th person, I start getting some major social anxiety.
I was like that for a long time still. Um, I'm like that in certain situations.
Mhm.
So I can relate to that too. How about the best place for people to connect with you?
Well, I've also been taking a major break from social media. So I would love if anybody wants to reach out to me through my website, arthealsallwoundspodcast.com. You can send me an email directly through there. I almost always respond. I mean, I do always respond. There's no almost about it. I love hearing from people if they just want to share an anecdote, if they want to pitch themselves as an artist to be on the show, or just share anything. I am easily reachable in that way.
Thanks, Pam. And the last question that I ask everyone, the name of this podcast is Painting Your Path. What does painting your path mean to you?
That is such a good question. Um, well, if I think about my path, I have always been very willing to change my path, change what I did for a living, leave some major relationships that were really not working for me, change where I'm living, and change the type of creative work I do. So I feel like my path, I don't know if zigzag is not really the right word, but I really reserve the right to try all the things I've wanted to try, thus the drumming. And so my path has never been and will probably never be a straight line. That is for sure. So being able to have it be zigzagging like, a curvy path through a forest would be how I visualize my path.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Pam, for joining us on the Painting Your Path podcast. It's been such a delight to speak with you.
Same here, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Me too. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And as I always ask at the end of every interview, what's your biggest takeaway? Tell us on social media And until next time, keep painting your path. Bye for now. Thank you so much for staying till the very end. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend. If you haven't had a chance yet, please write a review and rate the show. I would love to hear your feedback. And I also have a free resource guide for anybody who is asking themselves, am I on the right path for myself now? Or is there something else that I really want to do? Maybe you're in that quandary. Maybe you're wondering what's next. So head over to the show notes and you'll see my Painting Your Path framework guide. Download it and have some fun. Just start exploring. And thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you next week.